Welcome back to Candy's Art World. I'm Candy, and today we are going to do a rose with my Arteza brush pens. I'm kind of approaching it like watercolor. Um, I used a grid to draw out my rose. I used a reference photo from Pixabay. If you want to use a grid to help yourself with placement and proportions and stuff, just remember not to use a lot of pressure when you're drawing those grid lines, because if you do, your watercolor will pull into those lines and you'll have darker lines through your work. Or if you're using color pencils, the pencil will skip over those lines and then you'll have light color lines. This is something you might be able to use in your favor if you were doing something that needed texture. But for this rose, you definitely don't want a grid running through it. So just use a very light hand to draw the grid. And then after you get your drawing, you have to go through and erase your grid lines, because with watercolor, the pencil lines that are left will be visible. It's a little different with these brush pens. They're a little bit more opaque, but you want to get rid of any lines that you definitely don't want left in your finished piece. I used a light shade of green on the right hand side of the rose and a darker shade of green on the left hand side of the road. Not a road, it's a rose. To symbolize the light source. So my light source is coming from the right, and the rose is casting a shadow to the left. And with these brush pens, you don't have to color in the whole area. You can put in some color and use your water brush to help spread the color around your paper. And it helps kind of give like an antique, textured kind of a feel of watercolor. I really like that look on some of these pieces. I had thought I turned on the camera when I apparently had turned it off when I was filling in the rose stem and leaves, but I just used a reddish brown and a lighter brown to color that in, keeping the darker portion to the right and trying to have a little darker to the left and having the lighter to the right a little bit. And I'm using shades of pink for the petals. I work petal by petal instead of the whole flower at one time, so that way I can try to make sure I get a good blend on each of them. You got to make sure that you let your paper dry between petals so that way your color doesn't bleed over. I tried to make sure that there was a bit of a darker color or shadow underneath where up the turn towards us petals are, so that way you could see the difference. I decided that the darker colors needed to be just a touch darker, so I pulled out the red brush pen and just kind of dabbed a little bit in the spots that needed to be darker. And then blended it out with my brush pen. I mean my water brush pen. I hope you enjoyed watching. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Have a great day.